563.
Episode 65 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. If you're looking to grow, scale, build your junk removal dream, let me tell you something. You've come to the right place. As always, I'm Andy Weins, joined by my good friend Casey Bubba Lawrence. Casey, what are we talking about today?
Today we got a pretty cool guest. He's an okay guy. His name's Andrew Barten from Joyzy. And we're doing a little quarterly update with Mr. Andrew. He's been killing it lately. He's been doing really good for himself. And we actually had Andrew on, I want to say, 10, 12 episodes ago? Maybe a little less.
More. I'd say more than that.
More? Yeah, more than that. Okay.
Then
we met up with Andrew down in Nolan's for the Waste 360 Expo. So that was pretty cool.
It was cool.
Andrew, thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so what we want to do, Andrew Barten. Andrew's a weird. Do you normally go by Andrew or Andy?
I typically introduce myself as Andrew, and then most people call me Andy. But if you introduce yourself as Andy, you end up being called Randy, and it's not my name, you know?
Well,
how about I just call you Barten?
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
I like that too.
Barten Bros, right? Barten Bros
correct.
Junk Removal. So I guess I always go to Barten. Well, that's the other thing. So when I started in business, I went by Andrew for like the first 2 years in business, and that sucked because it wasn't me. And Andrew fucking Weins doesn't have the same ring as Andy fucking Weins did, so we had to go that route. I don't know that I've had the issue of people calling me Randy though. That hasn't
Randy.
I'm going to keep an eye out for it. Although
it must be my inflection.
Might be. Although yesterday I was sent to the 7 Circles of Hell, which is Home Goods on a Sunday.
DC?
No. And I had to pick up furniture with my lady friend, and she told them put it under Andy's name, and she said it, so it ended up being Angie because they thought that was her name. So I have not been accused of being called Randy. However, Angie, that's the latest one. And the rug turns out doesn't even work in the room. I thought it did because it fit in the box, fit in the space. Apparently, the colors something don't fit. Here's the deal: it's junk removal. If I wait a week or two, I'm gonna give me an 8x10 rug, right? It might not fit colors wise because I don't know how to fucking color block or patterns and textures and other shit. However, 8x10. It's got to fit. The math has to fit. As long as the math fits, we're good. All right, so that's what we're talking about today. So I started talking, then we got distracted by I mean me. Andy Barten texts me basically the second or third of almost every month, be like, how'd last month go? What's the story? And we talk about numbers, and everyone knows I fucking love some numbers. KPIs are my jam. Math does not lie. There's a lot of things we could say here. Hillbilly math. A lot of people now ask me about my hillbilly math. Who knew that was going to stick? So we decided, the collective here, when we were down at the Waste 360 Expo in New Orleans, that we should do a quarterly business update and talk about the business on a more holistic standpoint, because I'm in the Midwest, Casey's down south and consults throughout the country, and Andy Barten here is in the Northeast and in Jersey and expanding, and has been in the industry for, what, you're on 10 years, 12 years? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm going into my 12th. Started in 2012.
There we go. So going into his 12th year, the challenge I see is, and I bring this up all the time, is there's a lot of these cats that are online. They're like, hey, how to make $100,000 in junk removal your first year? How to, have a $3,000 day and not work.
Or $1 million your first year.
Yeah, or $1 million. And then here, buy this course or read my book or whatever. And when you have guys like you that have been doing it 12 years full time, I've been doing it 14 years in some capacity, plus stints with Waste Management and other places. And now I've been back at it almost 18 months. It's about long-term sustainability, because these flash businesses, I'm already starting to see some junk removal companies in my area weed out a
buttoning
little bit.
Up.
They're because the right, easy come, easy go. And so when we look at the industry as a whole, there's an opportunity now for us to have a conversation where all people understand what's going on. So what have you seen in your sector this year and then the last 90 days compared to, the last 3 to 5 years? What are you seeing trends wise?
So I first of all, I absolutely agree with you. I think the selling of the online courses, the problem is they don't differentiate, right? Like to do $100,000 in junk removal in 1 year, I mean that's nothing. But
So
real quick, did you make any money?
To add on that real quick, Andy and Barton. So I started out this year with a short little program that I was doing, and I closed it down because I started to realize, like, when I talked to these different people around the country, there was no relativity. I couldn't relate one to the other, and I had an honest conversation with my clients, and I was like, "Hey, look, man, like, I would love to do this every, once a month. The issue that I'm seeing is I can't hold the. I was pretty much wanting to be responsible, and I said I didn't want to pretty much drag them around based on numbers that are on complete opposite ends of the economy for each person.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually I had a short online course thing down, and I shut it down because, like you just said, Barton, I mean, it just doesn't differentiate, and there's too many factors from East Coast, West Coast, North and South to say, hey, this is a good picture of how you do it. And as we saw in the franchise world, they try to do that, right, Andy? I mean, they try to say this is the way to do it, and you cannot change from it because this is how success looks. But they never succeeded because it wasn't like that. It wasn't as simple as copy and paste this process everywhere you go.
Well, if you look at our guest, was it last week or the week before that? The guy from College Hunks. He's listening. He said, "I've listened to every single one of your episodes. I follow the playbook, right, or what you tell me, because we don't give you answers, we give you questions, and there's a huge difference there." And so it's like, hold on, you're paying all that money to the franchisor to listen to our podcast that's free, and also he's in my local market. I mean, he's 15 minutes from my shop, and he also has my number because it's readily available, and he'll text me questions to shit like, "Hey, how do you do this? How do you do that?" It's like, well, where's your fucking franchisor now? Right. And I'm not knocking College Hunks holistically. I'm saying as a junk removal industry, unless you're the 800-pound gorilla that is 800 got junk and you have absolute brand recognition, everything else you got to figure out. And with 800 got junk, it's a scale operation. They have such scale. They can come in with 15 trucks in the market and dominate. Most other places can't.
And sorry to interrupt you, Barton.
Work. Yeah, we get very passionate.
That's what the conversation's about here for. I'm happy. And I think it's important, too, before we go any further, these guys that are on YouTube and these guys that are coaching junk removal space, they're not really in junk removal. And, I want to predicate that with there are some guys out there doing it right. And not everybody out there is a scam. But if you're on YouTube full time, you're a YouTuber. You can't possibly be in junk removal the way that we are in junk removal. And I think it's the same with the coaches. If you're coaching, you're in the coaching business, and the coaching business is legitimate. There's a lot of good coaches, but you go in and you take their knowledge for what they're worth. At the end of the day, the really good coach is probably not a really good junk removal guy, or he'd still be in that space. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to offend anybody. And there's obviously exceptions to that rule, but
or he retired at 35 and goes to Florida every other week and wears cutoff shirts. Also, for the record, for those of you guys at home, this week's unofficial sponsor per Casey's ball cap is Yeti. Yeti coolers. If you want to show up to your friends and tell them you like to piss away money, Yeti coolers available now at your local Home Depot. See, the Meat Church hat. You got to bring back the Meat Church hat. I recommend Meat Church. Right? There we go. We're changing. Also, while we're talking about official and unofficial sponsors, Jobber. So this I did recently find out that if you get compensated in any way, shape, or form, and then you are a podcaster, you have to make it very obvious that you're not embedding shit. So I joke about Meat Church and Yeti, and I also very honest about Jobber. I fucking love Jobber, and the people that I've recommended Jobber to love it. And if someone's like, I already use this other system, awesome. I don't care. Use a system. Jobber's the one I use. And if you ask me a question about your system, I will tell you to get Jobber. Because that's the website, getjobber.com, like how I threw that in. Also, I have no clue how your system works. I can tell you what I don't like about your system because I bought a different system. So if I mention Jobber later in the podcast, know that if you sign up for Jobber and use my link, I get a little kickback. Hey, how are you? Also, they flew me to Nashville and they were having me on their podcast. So this is a great relationship I have with Jobber. I give them money. They give me money. I use their services. They use my voice. DUN done. and they don't pay me for the podcast. That's the beautiful thing too. We say whatever we want on this podcast still. This is a separate relationship. Like if you hired Casey for coaching, the junk coach, what is your web? I don't know what his website is. Whatever. You can get a hold of Casey.
So I actually took my website down because it got all messed up. So now it's just very select clients. I have about 6. Actually, so 2 of them I didn't renew with them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it light because I like to go to Florida, like you said. But I'm down to like 4. I'm about to pick one up. I'm about to swap, actually. I'm about to drop another one and pick one up. So I'll have about 4 total.
If you want very exclusive junk coaching that might come from Zooms from Florida or Texas, Casey, there we go. Now we got all our plugs. We don't have to plug. We choose to plug. It's a choice. We get to plug. All right, Andy Barten, let's go back to bitching about people on YouTube. Also, for the record, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm much better at junk removal than I am at YouTube. Because, like, some people are like, hey, actually, a guy, Junk Jedi, shout out Junk Jedi, one of our listeners here in the podcast, reached out to me, California guy. He has an IT solution. That's why he does the YouTubering, and he runs a good junk removal company. And one of his struggles is, to your point, Andy, to being great at more than one thing is difficult. So it's difficult to be great at software, junk removal company, and YouTube.
And that's well said. That's exactly my point. I'm not trying to discredit anybody, but no, it's impossible to
3 full-time
focus
jobs
on that much stuff. Yep.
Well, I think we see it all the time. We see the guy who has 1 million followers on TikTok or whatever, and then he's like makes videos 24/7, and you're like, okay, well, when you're talking about how to make $1,000 off of 9 jobs, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. To me, that does not sound like a good day. That sounds like a shitty day.
Yeah.
But he's doing it to get more followers, to put out content. So like you said, Bart, I mean, he's a YouTuber. He is a content creator. He's not a junk removal god or whatever. I'm not going to call anybody. We're not here trying to call people out. We're just trying to say, hey, look, we're going to call it like it is. And
well, I just think it's important, though. It's a big impact on our industry right now. And I think, one of my notes here is kind of talking about saturation, the micro versus macro. And those YouTube stars they're part of the reason the industry is what it is right now, I think. And again, it's not bad. Like you said, they're content creators. They do stuff I don't do. I can't create content. I go out and haul garbage. But I just think it's important to know the difference. Like that guy's making good content and he's running a relatively small junk removal operation. That's so you got to decide what you want to do. You want to be on YouTube or you want to haul junk?
Yeah, and do you want to scale? Right?
Right.
I looked at my numbers this morning. I looked at my queue. So we're shooting this episode here on the 3rd of July. We're sneaking an episode in this morning. We'll do another one because we wanted it fresh. I look at my numbers. I know how much money I made when it was my brother and I in the backyard, and it was cash money. The challenge was I was the one banging jobs, and I always wanted more. I'm like, oh, we want to do this and this and this, and then I scaled to 10 fucking locations at one point. I was like, oh, I don't want this. So I've scaled it now where we run, 6 to 8 trucks a day in our operation here in southeastern Wisconsin. And I'm happy. And I'm sitting here doing a podcast 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, and my guys are out banging jobs, taking care of our customers. So like one of the feedback pieces I got was, hey, Andy, you need to go on, for a YouTube perspective. They're like, why don't you do more videos from the field? I'm like, because I'm not in the field. And there's plenty of people doing videos from the field. The videos I do scrapping wise are because it's in the warehouse. It's something I enjoy doing, and I don't see anybody else doing it. I want to create content, and I do create content that is educational first, entertainment second. And even this podcast, right? Like this podcast may evolve to something. We call it the Trash Talk Business Podcast. At no point have we ever said, like, listen to our Junk Removal podcast to launch your business and be successful and wildly, awesome like Casey Bubba Lawrence. No, it's like, hey, Casey and I already sit around and talk about this shit on a weekly basis. Why not find more people? And
that was literally the basis of this whole thing.
That's it. That was the whole thing.
Like we talked to each other weekly and we're like, let's just fucking record it.
Yeah. Make it simple.
I will say this though. It's funny you say that, Andy, because I was talking to someone the other day. Right now I'm building a pretty big poker tournament for a charity. So I'm talking to like these people that have money, and I was talking to one guy, and he's like, "You have a podcast, right?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Tell me how'd that happen?" And I told him, I was like, "Look, me and a good, like probably one of my best friends. We don't live in the same town. He lives in Milwaukee. We were talking every week, and I was like, let's just record it. Why not?" And I go, and the cool thing is, we're not like these big legit podcasts with a studio and like, oh man, you got 4 different cameras on. You're like, dude, I do it from my truck sometimes. And he started laughing. I was like, well, because we're not doing it to get huge recognition from the masses. We're doing it to put out information and to get information that we don't know so we can share it with those. So he respected that. He was like, that's really cool, man. And he looked up, he did some numbers. I guess he does a media, whatever content for media companies. And he looked it up and we're like, if you Google junk removal podcast or trash podcast, like we come right up.
Well,
and he goes, so what are you doing about your ads? I go, we don't do ads, dude.
He
goes, wow, because that's not what it's about. Like right now we're doing it. We love doing it. We love having these guests on that can put out value, you know, so that's why we do it.
Well, and we're also putting ourselves out. We want the industry to be better, and we want it to be more professional, so we can sit here and bitch about the guys on YouTube or bitch about the guys that are in our local market chucking the truck on Craigslist. That's going to take on the jobs that I don't necessarily want. I want them to step up their game, and I want the industry to recycle more. That's my own personal thing. I want the industry to recycle more. I want us to get looked at in the same capacity as other legitimate home service industries. It's like, you know, you have the more technical, like plumbers and electricians, and then you have like the cleaners and the window cleaners and the gutter cleaners, right? And then it's like, and then the junk removal guys, right? It's like there's
trash
this
can cleaners. I'm sorry, that's
trash
ridiculous.
can cleaners. Actually, no. I know a guy that used to be with J-Dog back in the day. He does the trash cleaning business. Actually, Andy Barten and I talked about trash cleaning business. It's like
I just don't see it.
$120,000 rig. I know. I got it.
I don't see it, man.
You can only run it like 7-8 months out of the year because otherwise you'll freeze them out because use water. I know.
Just wash your trash can with ice.
I got it. That's why it's interesting.
I think there's
we live in a day
junk removal.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Barton.
No, I think there's Andy and I have spoken about this, at the expo actually, but I think there's a spot for it. I don't think it's necessarily a standalone business, but I think it's super complementary to what we do. I think it's an opportunity to get yourself out on routes and have your branding recognized and advertised like to everybody.
Yeah, but the problem is you leave it up to the consumer, and if you think about it, the most consumer, at least in my mind, obviously I have not looked into this heavily or researched it, but how I look at it is like, does the average consumer really want to pay $100 to have someone come spray out their trash can, or are they going to do the old bleach water thing and let it, sit out in the sun? I can see big trash companies offering it. Right, because it's their trash cans, and
I think for the record, I don't let the consumer decide anything. By the way,
what don't you like?
I do not let the consumer decide anything. I blast them with emails and postcards and flyers and Facebook ads and
friendly threats.
They don't even realize they want to talk to me.
Yeah, no. Here's what I will say: this while we're getting the trash cleaning business or talking about it, and I'll give this little nugget out there. To your point about the big companies, they do it, and they'll bring in like temp labor to do it, but it's not something they do year round. And a lot of the big companies, they're not going to invest in the equipment and the personnel for seasonal work. A lot of the seasonal work of the trash companies, it's no different than the guys that, for us at least, like when it gets really windy, all of a sudden there'll be trash bags everywhere from the landfill. They'll blow off. They'll bring in 20 temps and go bang it out because they don't need a full-time crew, right? The salary, all that burden. They need a project done now. And also in the trash can delivery and removal world, it normally happens at the end of the quarter. So it's either like December is the big time because a lot of contracts renew in January 1, or it's the end of June because the contracts, renew or start in July 1. So yeah, the trash cleaning business. I also tell you the guy that I know on the East Coast that does this. It's in addition to his junk removal company, and his biggest challenge is it's like how often do you have to do it? It's like every 6 weeks he does it for 6 months out of the year. Like do the math. It's only 4 to 6 services a year. You got to acquire a lot of customers to be driving around. Now, where you can make your money if you have like an HOA, you got a nice homeowners association that is like, hey, we want all of our trash cans to, look nice, smell nice, and you sign a deal with them, and you go right behind the garbage man the day of service. Maybe there's something there. Also, I don't find it interesting. That's my issue. It's a commodity.
I think the HOA is the place to do it because, like, for instance, I was looking at ours. we pay $150 a month for our HOA, and it's actually cheap. But
Yeah,
I will
that's
say
really
this:
cheap.
we live in a very big neighborhood, and it has a ton of amenities. Free internet for every house. I mean, it includes internet for the houses. It has 3 different parks, 2 big badass swimming pools, a community center, you name it. And they're still building. Like, they've only done 3 phases. They have five total phases, so they have 2 more to go. That would make sense. But here's the other issue: is, like, we've seen the franchise world. Your overhead is already more than the average guy when you start.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried getting a buddy of mine, pretty much partnered with the developer here, say, hey, he can do your landscape contracts, right? For all the main causeway. It's a huge, huge neighborhood. This would be a good deal. So they talked, and he came back and he was like, look, I can't even compete with who they're using. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm nowhere near it. Like, they are driving down the price so much that it would be a joke. I would be insulting to these people. And he's not like a white glove landscaper. He's just, but he was telling me, he goes, it'd be very hard to compete. So I think with what you're saying, like, that's a great idea. I think the issue you're going to see up front is competing with someone who could do it cheaper. I mean, that's kind of where we're at now with junk removal.
Yeah, it's also, it's no different than your porter services when you're going out there cleaning trash can or emptying trash cans.
That's the thing is, we were competing with landscape companies because they're already there.
Yeah.
Right?
Does seem to be a better fit for the landscape company.
Yeah, and in junk removal, like you said, Barton, I think the YouTubers, I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know, I hate thinking that it's saturated, because is it getting more popular? Yes. I think junk removal is trending, which is a good thing for the name of junk removal, but it's a bad thing for the business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say bad thing, I say it lightly. I just mean there's more competition popping up. So you have to be on your shit better. You have to, sharpen your edge. But I will say that what I've seen, and I've always said this, I preach this left and right, being based in your community and just saturating your own market with your own brand will help sustain through these times where everybody and their dog now does junk removal, right?
Yeah.
And remember, we talked, not even 2 years ago, last year, who's going to be still standing next year after all this shit kind of blows over. And it's the guys like, hell, I think it was actually with Barten. It's the guys that have been doing it the right way and doing it through the shittiest times. They're going to still be standing next year.
I know of 3 different current J-Dog franchisees that are going to be gone by the end of the summer, because they barely made the winter, and they thought, hey, this summer is going to pick up, and it hasn't. And now there is a finite amount of time before they're out of money. So they won't even be in the winter. They'll be dead by the end of the summer, because now they are licking their wounds and trying to make cash right now in the summer. And they already have exit strategies for September, October of this year, because they can't afford another thin winter. And that's what's happening.
Barten, do you do dumpsters?
Yep. I think we actually have 50 now, or if we don't, we'll have 50 this month.
So let me ask you a question. Are you seeing more traction with dumpsters than junk removal?
No.
No?
And I don't want to sound arrogant to this, but I don't see, everything is busy. And I think, to your point, I think there's a lot more junk removal companies. I do not think the market is saturated. Like, what's the definition of saturation? To me, it means you're in a position where you're struggling to gain market share, and you're in a price war, and you're having to accept a low margin. I don't think that's our business. It's not my business. I think there's a lot of these guys, like what you're talking about, Andy, with the J-Dog franchises, that, we were in a period here for 5 years or more than 5 years where it was easy to be an entrepreneur. And these guys are out there killing it because consumers want to spend money. They were not practicing the basics. They were not marketing. They were not continuing to touch their customers. I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I tell you what, I talk to guys, Andy, just like you said, you and I have a conversation. I got 7, 8 more guys that I talk to, and a lot of them are feeling it. But my experience of talking to them, they're feeling it because they weren't putting the time and the money and the effort into marketing when they should have been.
Yep.
And I do think this is going to be short-lived. I think there's an opportunity right now to really scale up and be ready for 2024. And maybe it's going to be 2025, but I got to tell you, I don't see it. We're in a very interesting economic time, but I think the labor shortage, the baby boomers retiring, those are our people. Those are the people that are spending money with me.
And that's the thing.
They're not going anywhere.
The market has doubled in 10 years. So let's put like from an oversaturation standpoint, the junk removal industry in 2013-14 was a $5.5 billion industry. As of 21, it's a $10 billion industry. So the industry has doubled. I would say the competition has quadrupled. The thing is, it's not quadrupled as in the number of competitors are out there. Their operations aren't huge. The reason I push back on the YouTubers and the Facebookers is because on all these Facebook groups, it's like, hey, I thought this was going to be easy. What the fuck? Or, hey, how much would you charge for this? Because to your point, they're not doing the basics. Like, figure out your pricing, and you will. I have never gone on the internet and said, hi, guys, here's a picture. How much would you charge for this? Now, I've reached out to Casey before and be like, hey, I had this project. This is what I bid it at. How do you look at it? But I bid it the way I bid it, whether it was time and material, cubic yardage, margin over expense, whatever. Because I knew the basics. The problem is people aren't teaching the basics, and you're a huge marketing guy, Barten. Like you're, and I've taken lessons from you. Actually, this week we sent our first mailers since we've been Camo Crew.
What?
The first time we sent out mailers
since Camo Crew.
But I also never really sent out mailers when I was with the franchisor. I hated mailers. I got it. And I tell you, I sent them out. We got 2 phone calls the first day they went out. Well, again, it's not a huge proof of concept, but it's something. And it's like, oh, that's interesting.
Well, that's basics. That's the coolest thing.
Right. I'm getting back to the basics, right? Like, send out mailers to people that are listed their houses. It's like, oh, shit, okay, yeah. Like, those basics I got away from. And the challenge is these guys that go out and made the money in the last 2-3 years, they didn't have a lot of failures. They had a lot of successes. They didn't document the successes to figure out, well, why was I successful? And then they didn't follow up with the basics. So this is the issue. The people that do the basics are going to gain market share. The people that don't do the basics are going to be gone out in the next 6 months, right? When we're looking at here on January 3rd, there's going to be a bunch of people that are out, and the rest of us are going to chew up and gobble up that market share. I got 6-8 trucks. It's nothing for me to add a truck. I'll take that all day. You had somebody that's barely hanging on with 1 truck, they're not going to go to 2. Or they are at 1 truck and they go to 2, and they didn't do the basics. They're going to have guys out there running the second truck for them and shit in the bed because they're not going to run the capacity
if you don't have the demand.
Correct. And you have to have the basics, right? This is slow as smooth, smooth as fast, fast as good. You can't go faster when you haven't figured out how to crawl, right? Crawl, walk, run. If you don't know what you're doing, you're just throwing bodies and trucks at problems, you're going to create more problems in the back end. And I know that's because I did that for at one point.
I think the best thing that we went through in our first year was we did the basics because we couldn't afford not to. Yeah. And plus we were in such a small area being with a franchise, you can't go outside a certain parameter or whatever. So you had to get creative. I mean, back then, as everybody knows, I never spent a dime on Google, not because I didn't believe in it, because at the time it wasn't really a priority. We were very involved in our communities. Now, when you go and look at that, yes, we were in suburbia. I never went into a downtown area. But I'll tell you this, the one thing that hasn't changed since then is if you're showing up to networking events, to fundraisers, to ribbon cuttings, if you're putting out mailers, if you're putting out door hangers or yard signs, those are basics. That shit right there won't change because it still gets in front of your customer, and you don't have to worry about someone spending an extra $1 or $2 and your sign just immediately gets covered up, as in Google ads or Google whatever. So you can't rely on just one source of marketing, and the basics are very important. I'll tell you this right now. I hate it when if you go right now and post on any of these groups and say, hey man, this works, right? I can buy yard signs, double-sided, landed for about $4 a pop, right? And my minimum job was $120. That means, like, regardless, worst case scenario, if I get one minimum off of a yard sign, I mean, look at that, that's insane.
20. Yeah.
Well, their excuse is, well, we're not allowed to do yard signs. Okay, then guess what? Figure out where you can do yard signs, or figure out what you can do in your area.
Instead of yard signs, yeah.
Yeah, instead of yard signs. I mean, yard signs work for us, and we've said it before, Andy. Like, you didn't do yard signs because you said that they didn't really work for where you were.
Yeah.
Well, for us, shit.
Yeah, I ran 5. I think about 200 of them after a year when we moved from the backyard to the warehouse. we had like 150. Like we only ran like 50 of them, right? And so I remember I told our guys, I was like, hey, put all these out, run them, and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we put out like 150 over like 6 weeks. Like we really hit them hard and tested the theory. And it's like we got some traction, not great. My other thing is, man, I was driving home the other day on this one corner. It's a 4-way stop. 3 of the 4 corners had yard signs on them, and I'm like, huh, right? And it's like the mosquito guy, it's the window cleaning guy, and I think it was a roofing guy. And I'm like, and again, part of me is like, man, I should be on that 4th quarter. It's like this, like so. I think about it because it's like, well, those guys are doing them.
Why are they doing it?
There's a reason, exactly, right? Yeah. There's a reason why they're doing them, and again, this is that challenge I have often when it comes to marketing because I struggle with marketing. It's like, do I want to go where nobody else is and dominate it, or do I want to play the game with everybody else and be a participant? And the truth is, you got to do both. It's like when I go to networking events, chances are I'm the only one there that's junk removal, with the exception of the big home and garden shows. I'm the only one. Yeah. So it's like I'll own that space. There's a finite resource. You go to an intersection though, you got 1 car a minute. That's a shitload more touches and awareness for everybody there.
I tried sponsoring a stoplight one time. The city said "F you."
Sponsoring a stoplight? What are you talking about?
Like putting a big banner over the lights. Just like, hey.
I like it. Actually, speaking of the basics, like we're doing the 3rd of July or the 4th of July parade on the 3rd of July. Every year we do 2 parades. And if you ask people like, oh man, you guys are at every parade. Nope, we do 2. We do the same 2 every year. So chances are it's the same 2 everybody else goes to. This year though, so this is something unique though. Every other year we've done the parade, we've done the pickup truck and the open trailer. Because we want to show people like, hey, this is where we came from. These are the basics, or the Jeep and the trailer. Which I'll tell you what, going up a hill on a parade route in a Jeep that's stick shift, pretty sure I burned out everything. Right? Not a great idea.
Clutch gone.
This year, as of today, though, we are going to take our 24-foot box truck with the lift gate down the parade route.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to put the lift gate like at a half mast and put all our fruit snacks. The other thing, we do fruit snacks, not candy. Differentiator, right? And so I will report back. Remind me in one of our next episodes to tell you how the 24-foot box truck did at the parade. It's going to be
do you do any
interesting
parade stuff around the 4th?
Nothing on the 4th. Typically, we do the Halloween parade. Back when I had the ice arena, I would tow a trailer with the junk truck, and then one year we actually had people skating around in the back of it. We had some synthetic ice, and we were blowing little snow globes out. It was you get some traction.
Yeah. That's interesting. All right. Yeah. No, I do not like to attend parades. I think they're boring. I love being in parades. There's gonna be fucking 15,000 kids I'm gonna be throwing fruit snacks at like that, like pegging them in the head. Every year we run out of fruit snacks too. Every year.
That's right, you do. That's right. I remember what you show a picture of like a pallet of shit you bought.
Yeah, so we buy
parade.
I think I went through 45 boxes at the Memorial Parade, and I know it's almost double. So I think we're walking in with like 70 boxes, and we will run out. I should have 90. So when I go to the Costco, huge fan of Costco, unofficial sponsor. However, I love the Costco. When I go to the Costco, there's this guy called Costco Ken. At least that's what I call him. And he's like, "You here for your fruit snacks?"
Mike.
I'm like, "Yep." His name's Mike. I call him Costco Ken. And every time I go through the register, people look at me. They're like, "Why do you have 100 boxes of fruit snacks? Legit 100 boxes of fruit snacks."
I have a problem.
Yeah, and then here's the other issue. I bought them before Memorial Day, and I had I bought 80 boxes. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do 35 and 45. And then of course day of, I was like, nope, 35 is not enough for the small parade. So I upped it by 45. So now I'm down to 35 boxes. So I'm like, all right, I'll go buy 20 more, right? 55 boxes, no big deal. My fucking guys saw them. They started putting fruit snacks boxes in the trucks. So now I'm down like 8 boxes of fruit snacks. And there's fucking wrappers everywhere. And our guys will sit there and open them one little wrapper at a time for 4 fruit snacks and eat them in front of me. I'm like,
we had the same issue with Capri Suns.
Oh yeah,
we had a huge thing at Capri Suns, and obviously I took like 10 boxes for Rylan, but we would find these little straw wrappers everywhere in the trucks. So you open up a cooler, it's because they were jacking all the Capri Suns. I'm like, what the hell, dude?
someone ate my daughter Penny. So now we're way off top. We didn't have a topic to start with. Anyhow, Andy Barton's got pictures of his kids in the background. So whatever, we're talking families now. How to be a junk removal dad. No, my daughter has Pop-Tarts at her warehouse because that's her go-to when she's here. She was pissed. So she was here for 2 weeks, and then she went back by her mom for 2 weeks. She came back, and all her Pop-Tarts were gone. And like, there's the like communal food, and there's the not communal food, and they don't eat my shit. They don't eat my fucking Triscuits and sunflower seeds, and they have stole my Doritos in the past. So I learned to hide those. Cheese. Oh, beef sticks. Oh yeah, they found Penny's Pop-Tarts. She was pissed. She asked everybody who ate my Pop-Tarts, and of course, no one fessed up to it. That and one of those little bites, little ones. One of those little fucking muffins that are like basically like pure cocaine in a muffin form.
The mini muffins.
Mini muffins, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. They got the dog.
Oh yeah.
All I know is our guys, savages, stealing food from a 9-year-old.
So I will say to bring it back to the parade. So I'm going to Southlake here in Southlake, Texas. They have what's called Stars and Stripes. Stars and Stripes. And with this nonprofit that I'm with, I was looking at different places to go, set up a booth, whatever. So Stars and Stripes, they are $1,000 to set up a table, right? But last year there was 35,000 attendees. This year they're expecting up to 50,000 attendees. Every year it's insane. And I will say the one thing I've always seen is there's a couple of towns that do it real big and they get a ton of traction. Southlake's one of them. We missed the cutoff to get a table, but I'm actually going to be going this evening anyways, just kind of with the family, but sporting, just spreading the good word. But I will say this, when you look at the numbers, when you look at these towns, they're doing these festivities, these festivals, whatever, and look at the numbers. If the price, let's just say it's $1,000, but you have the potential of being in front of 50,000 people, then you need to jump on that, put 2 or 3 guys at that table. And you have one person at the table, 2 people working the room or the festival.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, that's basics.
Well, then the other thing is, then it's no different than going to a home and garden show. We make our best contacts with the other vendors. It's like, well, who else is willing to pony up $1,000 to meet this same audience? Chances are they have an adjunct service that we can both provide the same audience. So $1,000. That's right. That's a hefty table. I'm thinking like 1,500, 2,000 people are going to be there. You're talking 50,000 people. That's 2 cents a person, right? That's a lot of touches. And to your point, if you have a bullshit table with one unmotivated individual behind it, you need 2 guys behind the table plus 3 or 4 walking around. So by the time they see the table, they've already seen the brand 2 times. That's one of those where you're already $1,000 committed. Like, this is where you bring your guys in. How long has he been? 4 or 5 hours total? Or is it all day? Or what is it?
It's like 4 to 11.
There you go. So what you do is you bring your guys in, you pay them for a full wage, right? So you got $1,000. Even if you bring in 5 guys, you're going to have $1,000 in wages and $1,000 on the table. What I've also seen that is garbage is if someone pays $1,000 for a table, and they're like, all right, now I have no money to man it, so I'm going to just have one of my guys sit there with magnets. And it's like, well, that's stupid. Yeah. Like, it's better to go big in less places, right, than it is to spread yourself thin.
And there's cheaper options, obviously, right? Like, you can go get, what does 200 get you? What does 500 get you, kind of thing. Yeah. But to have a table in the square with all the vendors, I mean, all the peoples, you're not just paying to have a table. You're paying to be front and center and to be around other people that just forked up the $1,000, like you just said. And if you look at it like, hey, not how much am I spending? Look at how much am I going to get seen? How many people can I actually talk to in front of, in person, where I really can't normally?
And these are people that aren't looking to buy. The challenge is when you're on Google, for example, it's only people that type in junk removal.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a difference between that awareness. Hey, here's what we do and how we do it versus the point of sale. Hey, let me compete against the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do in your local market, Barton? You're the marketing guy. Oh, you're on mute. Come on. It's 2023. You're on mute. Gee, what is this?
Oh, there we go.
What is a Zoom call?
I'm back. All right. I think to circle back to what you guys were saying, though, I think the important thing to look at with those networking events, those marketing events, like where you're setting up a table, you got to factor that all in at the end of the year and figure out what your customer acquisition cost is, because you're talking about sitting there, you've seen all these people, And if you catch 5, 10 of them and they cost you almost nothing, if it costs you $200, like Casey said, or $500 and you get 10 people, your customer acquisition cost may be real low at the end of the year. And that's money you don't have to spend on Google.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things a lot of these guys that listen to your podcast, if they're new or they're small or starting out, that's the important stuff you need to look at. It's not, hey, how much did the table cost? It's how much return on investment did I get there? How many customers was I able to acquire that cost me almost nothing or potentially almost nothing if you're able to get enough of them, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of my conversation today too. Just looking at where we're at right now. This year has been very interesting. We've already mentioned we think a lot of these guys are going out. And then so let's talk to the guys who are serious about the business though. Who wants to stay in and how do you do it? You can be one of these one truck guys. You can be the small guy advertising on Facebook. Nothing here is finite. We're not saying you have to do it this way, but look at what you're doing and figure out if you're doing it right or doing it wrong. The Facebook people specifically. I got a guy, he actually worked for me for 2 weeks, decided to start his own company. Went out, and here in New Jersey, you have to be licensed and all this sort of stuff. So it's really funny because he's not legitimate at all. No insurance, no license. He actually is probably going to struggle to even be able to empty out a truck if he fills one. But his first tactic was go on Facebook and say, okay, here's my pricing. And he basically took my pricing and he discounted by 20%. And I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, in the short term, that might work for you. But my pricing, like you said earlier, Andy, is my pricing because I figured out what it costs to make money and survive here. What the overhead is. And so I think that circles back to customer acquisition. Figure out how much you're spending to get a customer. And that's why your price is your price. And then you figure out how to drive that customer acquisition cost down. My friend Russ Berry he runs a junk removal company out of Rochester and down in Florida. You know Russ, yeah?
I know Russ.
Great dude, man. Super smart. He's probably borderline a mathematical genius. But he and I have had this conversation.
People don't like him
because
he's very straightforward. It's hilarious because
hold on, how do I not know this fucking guy? I love him.
You've seen him. He doesn't get caught up in the bullshit, but he'll post every now and then. He has A+ junk removal, I believe it's called.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Is he I spend a lot more time on LinkedIn than I do on Facebook.
I guarantee you, Russ is not on LinkedIn.
No. There's all right. That's why I don't know the guy, and I don't watch a lot of shit on YouTube when it comes to junk removal, because I don't.
He's not on it. He's
where the hell is he then?
He's out hauling garbage, man.
Well, I got that, but how do you guys know him? Where do you see him? How do you
Facebook?
Oh, you're Persian. Okay, I say the hell out of those Facebook groups for the most part. They get twitchy.
Well, Russ and I have attended the same courses, but I'm telling you, he's smart with that stuff, and I think he's definitely a guy worth talking to. Reach out to him. I'll send you his phone number. Get to know him, see what you think. I think he could be a potential awesome guest for you guys. But we talk about that all the time. Like, dude, Google costs you $50 a customer. Your referrals cost you nothing. And everything in between costs you somewhere between 0 and 50. So like you said, Andy, use your KPIs. Like, look at that. That's a tremendous amount of money if you can capture that person for no dollars. Or you get them off of Google and then get them to call you back 3 times. You've now cut that $50 bill into half or thirds.
Yeah.
And I think, in this inflationary period where you're out there running and gunning and consumers are more price conscious than they probably have been in a decade, I think those are important things to know.
No, and I love what you said is dead on. $50 beyond $50 customer acquisition cost. That's when it gets into the Home Advisor, Angie List, garbage leads world, right? Where you're talking $80 to $100 customer acquisition cost. Yeah, it's $20 a lead. And also, you only close 1 in 4. Boom, there's your $80 customer acquisition cost. So I can't remember, was it on this podcast or I was on maybe whatever, the podcast recently. I talked numbers and they said, okay, you love numbers, blah, blah, blah. Like, what numbers matter? And to your point, I said, here's the 3 numbers. First number is your customer acquisition cost. Understand what it costs to your customer. Second number is, what is your average ticket? So you have to go do 100 jobs, figure out what your average sale is, and then figure out your blended margin. After all it's said and done, what do you make per job? Because you're going to start finding sweet spots. You're going to start seeing which jobs and which zip codes are ideal. So recently we had a marketing company audit our customer list through Google, right? Because they can pull it and it was much faster. I gave them zip codes, green, yellow, red. 65% of my customers came from the green zip codes. And I sat there, I go, yeah. And probably 25 came from the yellow zip codes and 10% came from the red zip codes. And he goes, yeah, almost exactly. I go, okay. I said, I didn't know that day one. I spent a year researching zip codes and junk removal, and I figured out. I looked at every demographic, right? Like I thought at one point the number of veterans in an area would impact my would impact my business. Does not impact it whatsoever.
No.
The veteran per capita makes no difference, right? For me, the 4 things that I look for is higher than household value, higher than household medium income, college educated, college educated goes with it, but then I'm looking for married with children.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for demographically, right? And it's not because people that are unmarried or anybody else are bad people, or people that make less than are bad. The fact is, when you are college educated, you make good money, and you have kids, you acquire more things, right?
That's the thing is,
you have single people or people without kids. Really, like I got a good buddy of mine who lives out of Louisville. He has no kids. Him and his wife do very, very well for themselves. They go on a shitload of vacation. You go in their house, there's almost nothing there. Why? Because they didn't acquire things like they're not at home. So is he a good guy? Yeah. Did he fit the first 2 parameters of higher than household value and income? Yes. Don't mean shit when he ain't got no kids.
Our key demographic was a mom between the ages of 35 and 50.
Correct. 35, 55, 30, and 50. Yeah. 70% of my customers, I can't remember. We used to have a name for her because it was the most, after like 18 months in business, it was the most prevalent name that we had. It might have been Karen. Whatever. What it came down to was like 70% of our transactions were women. We literally scrubbed every single name, and I sent a male or female. It was like 71% of the transactions were female. Why? Because they're head of household. And again, it's not being sexist. It's like, so there's a reason why Facebook ads, right?
It's math.
Work. It's math. Math don't lie. I gotta meet this Russ guy.
So you're gonna like Russ.
I already like Russ. Russ loves math and not YouTube. I like Russ. And I also tell people, here's another number for all you guys that are out there. This guy hit me up this weekend. He's here in Appleton, Wisconsin, probably an hour and a half north of me. He got into he got into junk removal like recently, and he booked 3 jobs. He told me the prices. He's super excited. He's like, listen to your podcast. I wouldn't be here without you. Blah blah blah. Whatever. I go, all right. He's like, what advice do you have for me? I go, do 100 jobs. He goes, why? I said, then you're going to figure out whether you like this or not. Next thing, do 1,000 jobs so you can see what the hell is working and what isn't working. Those are the 2 things you need. And then we can have a conversation. Because I'll tell you, when I was first in business, I asked all these people all this advice, and they would ask me questions I did not have answers to. And they didn't have answers to either because it was industry specific. So this is my challenge to everybody out there. You got to go do 100 jobs to figure out if you like it, and 1,000 jobs to figure out what the hell you know. And you got to document everything from your first job. And the basics are, to your point, Andy Barton, how did they hear about me? How long did it take me to do the job? What did I do on the job, whether it was junk removal, demolition, deconstruction, moving, hauling, whatever.
Yeah, why are you there?
What did I get paid? What were my other expenses? When it's just you, you're not thinking about that. You're like, I don't know, it was 3 hours. I made $500. It's like, well, okay, did you have disposal? Did you make money on scrap, right? At least give an estimate. All right, it was 500 pounds, 7 cents a pound right now on scrap price. Okay. Like I can carry the one and figure out, I got $35 there. All right, fine. So little things like that are going to be the differentiator, because then when you look back at your 1,000 jobs, you're going to know something.
And
one thing go ahead.
No, go ahead, Case.
Well, I was going to say, one thing that we did in our second year is our truck leads had credit cards that were business credit cards. And, we paid for their drinks. If they wanted to get snacks in the morning, we said, hey, just keep it under a certain amount. We get it. You're out there in this heat or whatever. You need to keep drinking stuff. Sometimes you need to get some energy, whatever. But they're like, how come you're paying for all this? I was like, I'm not doing it to pay for it. I'm doing it to track it. Because when you stop and spend your own money on shit, you spend your own time too. Or you spend my time doing it, and you take more time. Like, I don't know how many times they would stop at a gas station and hang out for 5-10 minutes, right? And then come to find out, the trucks, when you see them at the end of the day, there's hot dog wrappers, there's just shit everywhere. I'm like, okay, well, how about this? If I say, hey, I'll pay for your snacks and obviously Gatorade, drinks, whatever, but I don't want you taking advantage of it. I noticed that, they would still stop, but not for long. And then I could actually look and see how much money we're spending on a daily basis. And that helped me kind of figure out, okay, what does one job actually cost? Now, if you look at it as an owner operator standpoint, you're doing the same shit. So yeah, like you said, Andy, you don't think about the other expenses when it's just you. Oh, I made $500. Okay, well, did you buy that pack of cigarettes? Did you stop and joke around with someone? Did you, I mean, you have to think it all adds up. And if you're not tracking it, which the credit card is probably the best way to track everything. I love it. But if you're not tracking it, then at the end of the year, when you're like, why am I not growing? Well, it's because you're not tracking everything. You don't know where your money's going. And just because you see $500, your bank account doesn't see that. Your bank account's seeing negative because you're not tracking. Sorry, I had to put that in there.
No, I think it's excellent information, and I think we can work off that too. I think to Andy's point, like, you use your CRM if you're using Jobber, but that's all private data, and if you're using that system successfully and properly, and you're implementing those tools, you have so much data at your fingertips to continue to be successful that other people don't have. We do the same thing. We break everything down: junk removal commercial, junk removal residential, junk removal for new customer, junk removal for residential customer. And we probably have 30 or 40 different job tags, and we have 3 to 5 different customer tags. And Raven is my wife. She's the office manager. She's really probably the brains, the back end of this thing. And she sits there and analyzes that information constantly. She called me up the other day. She goes, Andy, I think I need to break this category down further because I think there's opportunity in there that we weren't catching. And she goes, I know it's the middle of the year, but do you think it's worth doing? And I said, it's July 1. It makes perfect sense to me. Let's start from this point forward. And we know, okay, we basically going to have 6 months worth of data. I said, at the end of the year, we can reevaluate again. But I think that access to information, learning those KPIs, but also gathering the data, like you both have said, gathering the data is huge. And if you're not doing that, you're missing opportunity. I went out and did a job the other day. Somebody called me up, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if or when it ends, but Andrew Barten does not turn down money. All right. We have a pretty successful operation. I could probably afford to take a day off if I wanted to, but I don't. If somebody calls me up and they need something done, it's Sunday. Hey, I'd love to come out tomorrow and take care of that for you. They push me. I'll come out on Sunday. I don't care. My shop is a quarter mile from my house. I went out and did it. I looked. They sent me a photo of the job. I said, okay. I told my daughter, I said, get in a truck. We went out and we did it. We picked up 3/4 load, basically like 12 yards of stuff in a 15-yard truck. Our fee for that, $708. And we sat there in the truck, and on the way home, I had my daughter doing some basic math for me, and we broke things down. We figured out the insurance on each truck for every day is $16.83. The truck roughly cost me $95. The workers' compensation is $32 a day. The fuel is $25, maintenance $15, and then we figured out our labor and our disposal costs. Dude, that lesson to a 13-year-old kid, if she retains that, was so valuable. And it's stuff that a lot of these people don't even figure out as adults when they're running their business.
Mm-hmm.
You got to gather that information, have the data, and figure out how to make sure you're profitable.
Every right successful and big business does it. So why shouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love two things you said. One of the reasons why we are shooting this episode on July 3rd, we pushed this off to do it right now was because we wanted to end of the quarter so we can have the fresh mindset second half of the year, right? Not just like, oh, let's shoot this 6 weeks ago and then just no, like I need to be in this mindset because it's second half of the year. The other thing I love, by the way, your wife is you're dead on, right? She's the fucking brains of the operation. She's awesome. We got a chance to meet her and hang out with her, and she knows her.
She was more business than you, Barten.
Oh my god, yeah, she does because
That's
she
the way
knows.
I like it.
Yeah, and here's the beautiful thing. This is what I love about data. It is a hell of a lot simpler to take small numbers and add them up than it is to take a big number and dissect it after a period of time. You're not going to remember. So, like to your point, we have, I think it's 17, 18 categories of how did you hear about us, and so I have that set, and also I have the high end set. I recently changed. So for historically, we always would break things down by service type. So we had, junk removal, hauling, demolition, deconstruction. We had moving, right? And it was about halfway through this year so far. So, after Q1, I broke it down by market segment. So now it's residential, 3 lines of service, which is, I call it moving because not to confuse it with hauling, but I got junk removal, deconstruction, and moving. And then I have commercial, and then I have industrial because we do work for the industry. We work for WM, just other bigger industry companies, because now I'm making the customer the priority, not what we're doing, who we're doing it for, which has shifted me from more operational mindset to more marketing mindset. Last month in June, we had our biggest month ever in residential. If you'd asked me like 6 months ago, like between residential, commercial, and industrial, where my focus was on industrial. Our president of our company, his focus was on commercial, and then our marketing company's focus on residential. The last 6 months, I've been so focused on residential, and same with Ken, our president, that our commercial line of business hasn't grown as much, and residential has really, really grown because we've taken a lot of time with our marketing company to get it dialed in. Now that it's dialed in, now we got to focus on commercial. I would not have known that had I not recategorized my customers and my customer type. If I'd have been like, well, junk removal is high this year, well, it's like, well, which type of junk removal? And then also to your point, when it comes to even your expenses, I break down my expenses so my marketing expenses line up with how did you hear about us expenses? It is a 1-for-1. So now when I pull the report from Jobber, it lines up with QuickBooks, and then I can quickly find out what my overall customer acquisition cost, and then I can look at of the 12 categories within QuickBooks now that we segregate things, I think, for advertising. I can look which are the ones that are above and then below the average customer acquisition cost. I know there's some things that cost me more, and yet the customer is probably worth it. So like realtor customers, they cost me more because I also factor in my time by going to networking events. However, I know that a customer that gets to us with realtor is worth more. And I know that because I track the data. So it's like, okay, which one's worth more? Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Also, I will say this. I'll throw this out. We just ran a test, 90-day test on Google LSA, Google Local Services. And I was fighting to get this done because you got to do a background check and driver's license, all this other shit. Google Local Services performed worse than regular ass Google ads because we can track those separately. Yep.
So this is a question for both of y'all. I've always had my opinions on this. How badass and how much money do you need to put in to just your website as a junk removal company? The reason I ask this is because I noticed when I asked people how they heard of us, if they say Google, then I say, what'd you search for? If they say, oh, I saw your truck and then I Googled who you were, that means they saw our truck, then they went to Google and they probably went to our website.
Correct. That's visibility. That's visibility truck for me. Because what was the thing that triggered it? Oh, I had a pissing match. I got to say this real quick. I had a fucking pissing match back when I was with the venture capitalist group because one of their choices was website. You found us on the website. I'm like, that is such bullshit. That's like saying I found you I found your phone number because a website is the catalyst. What got you to the website? Was it Google? Was it Facebook? Did you see my truck and then type it in? And this was like a half-hour debate. And at the end of it, I got my way, and they were still pissed. They're like, well, blah, 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 SEO. I'm like, okay. Does anyone ever say, oh, I found you by way of SEO? No, they fucking Google shit or Bing shit. Or if you're old as shit, you fucking ask Jeeves, right? And then you get to your fucking website. Ask Jeeves. For all you millennials, there was a thing. Maybe if you're an old millennial. Awesome. I'm an old millennial.
Yahoo was the thing.
At one point, Yahoo, Mama.com, Ask Jeeves, all bigger than Google.
Yeah.
Remember Mama.com? Like, oh yeah, I remember writing high school papers. And the search engine was terrible. Terrible. Couldn't find it.
Well, the point behind that question, well, honestly, was there's so many. If you go out there right now and just look up these different junk companies, you'll see some with pristine, badass websites, and you'll see some with basic, hey, I did it myself because that's where I'm at. And I've always felt the same way. The website, as long as it has the right information and the right kind of influence for these customers, like, hey, I want to know what they do. I want to know what you do and how you do it and how much it costs or how to get in touch with you. And you can answer your phone or you can answer an email. I feel like your website doesn't always have to be a $10,000 website. You can have a basic website. It just has to have the right stuff on it. It has to have the right information. That's my opinion.
I think you're right overall. I mean, I think Andy was on that podcast with Lewis, right?
Yep.
And Russ is actually on there too. Look that episode up. But I don't think the website itself needs to be overdone. I think you need to spend your money on the SEO. If you're spending money on the SEO, to Andy's point, they're going to be able to Google you. They're going to be able to look you up on Bing. and your page is going to populate. I think that's important. And now, I spend a ton of money on my website, you know, whether it's via ads or on the actual site itself, just constantly updating and trying to change things, surfing it, making sure it works the way I want it to work, making sure the funnels are appropriate. But I don't think it needs to be overdone. I do think one of the things that we do that I like doing, and I don't know if it works for everybody because I know a lot of these guys are trying to sell, spiff coals and commission, but we advertise all of our pricing. I try to take all the nonsense and the bullshit out of it. And I'll tell you what, I'm probably the most expensive in my area or very close. And I close the deals constantly because I show people that pricing page and they just, in my opinion, people want a fair price. Yeah. And so, I use my website to provide that idea and they're like, oh, if everybody's paying the same, I'm cool with paying it because I don't actually know what garbage costs.
No,
it's just a matter of what it's worth. And what it's worth to people differ. But if you can say, hey, this is what everybody thinks it's worth, this is what everybody pays, here's the pricing page, this is how we structure it, automatically you're on board.
What's interesting,
I'm more expensive than one that got junk. And
what's interesting, I'm on your website right now. What's interesting is you have a significant price for your quarter and half truck. And then there's not a huge jump to your 3/4 or even your full truck.
Yep.
You want to explain that?
Well, so I think if you break it down, I can. You break it down mathematically. There's pretty proportional increases. What happened though is I don't like to discount the full truck too much. Yeah, I don't think you need to. So I find the quarter and a half, fairly difficult to fill up. The 3/4 truck price, if you can't get that extra quarter truck, that price point makes it worth my while. I can send that truck to the dump if I need to. And so I think those quarter and half truck people, though, they realize they don't have a lot of stuff. And once you explain to them volume-based pricing and the fact that, hey, like this costs more because I either have to find another job that fits in here or I have to take it to the dump, I don't get a lot of pushback on it.
You know what? I've always been opposed to showing our pricing. However, what's interesting is I won a job the other day over a competitor. So I came in at $1,500. I put it down for not to exceed 3. It was a garage, and she's like, "Oh, we might add stuff, da da da." But I said, "Hey, our prices are $750, $749 a full trailer. We call them trailers because we have different truck sizes, whatever. $749 for a full trailer." And she's like, "Well, this other company quoted me $900 in labor plus $100 to $300 in dump fees, so they're only at $1,200, and you're at $1,500, and you said it might be more." I said, "I go by the truckload." I said, I ended up quoting her like $2,250 if it was a full 3 trailers because she's like, well, there's stuff in the garage I want to keep. I said, here's the difference though. I said, I can stop at any point and I can tell you exactly where I'm at. I said, if you want to go 2 trailers, this is what I can accomplish with 2 trailers. We'll leave the shit in the rafters, right? I'm going to get all the stuff on the ground because she has to work on her garage. So she doesn't need it all gone. She needs space to work. And I go, with the other company, I said, what was the name of them? She goes, well, I don't want to disclose. I said, okay, did they give you, she goes, I don't want to disclose. I said, that's fine. She goes, but all they gave me was a text message. And I asked them for a hard quote because she's acting as a power of attorney. And she goes, and they wouldn't give it to me. They said, our text message is good. I said, well, there's your difference. I gave you a no shit. Here's my price per trailer. No fucking around. And if it's less, it's less. And with these other guys, it was like, well, it might be $100 to $300 in disposal. And she goes, well, how do you charge disposal? I said, well, I bring everything back to my warehouse and sort it. And then that gets into a whole other conversation. And I said, there's a cost associated with sorting material back at my warehouse. And unlike the franchises that are like, we recycle up to 70% and they have no fucking way of tracking it. That was the other thing I beat up college hunks about because they don't track it as a company. So when you say that, it's bullshit. I can tell you I had an independent study done that had me at 80% recoverable by volume of the shit that I bring back to my warehouse. And in our warehouse, I can show you how we do the process. And I can show you all my vendors lists. So I agree. Transparency is key. I am strongly considering putting our pricing online because you said it. And I'm looking at your website. It's like, well, why not? Like people that want to find your price. Yeah, people that want to find your price are going to find it either way.
Yeah, they are going to find it. I'll tell you what, like, I don't even try to hide it, man. You're paying for the service. That's what we offer. We're a service-based business. My guys are all reputable. They're clean. They're friendly. They speak well. They don't look like hoodlums. And people are willing to pay for all that. And they would just want to be treated fairly. Like, listen, my guys make money. They have nice cars, they have decent apartments. That stuff's important. You can call some of these other companies and they're picking guys up off the street, or they got day laborers, or whatever the case. It's perception, and just to your point, Andy, it's telling a story. You explain to people who you are, how you do things. And I think the other big thing that's important, like maybe the 3-trailer job is not huge, but I run into things all the time where people are bidding jobs they honestly can't do. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the manpower. So you can pay them and they can be there for 7 to 10 days, or you can pay me and we can be in and out of there in 7 to 8 hours.
Oh, there's a huge benefit to that. Huge benefit.
Yeah. But at the same time, I also, the one thing with pricing, and this is what I tell everybody, if you don't have it on your website, what happens with, and I saw this a couple times before we started just posting it, but our guys would get to a job and then they would give the wrong price, right? Or they would discount, or something would it wouldn't be consistent. And that's a problem, because they'll be like, well, the first time I used you, it was this much. But guess what? They got a different guy this time, right? So now he's like, I wasn't there. So in order to create that consistency and keep it, across the board, hey, this is our pricing. Now, at the end of the day, and I'm sure y'all both agree with this, look, that's our pricing for our service. It doesn't mean we can't fluctuate. All right. Like, yeah, obviously if, when you show up to a house and there's this, hey, my whole family died and I'm in charge of getting rid of everything and they left me with nothing, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Look, if we can make it work, we will. Obviously, I'm not going to say, oh, well, they charge you $200. I'm at $3,000. I'm not going to match that. But if we can make a deal with each other, absolutely. We're not out here just to stick it to you. But the transparency goes so far, because now they can go online. And if they want to say, hey, I'm going to call these people. Hey, guess what? You have all the information now. So you called me based on the information you have. Now we can have a conversation, rather than, hey, what do you charge for this? And then you have to have that conversation with them. And now they're going to go off of, well, so-and-so said this. It goes back to customer acquisition, really,
Well, we're not in the business of turning down money.
Right.
I think you're 100% right. Like if somebody has a budget and we can work within it, we're going to work within it.
It has to make sense on both boards, though.
I had a lady the other day, so we gave her a price. She used this in the past. She emailed us back and said, hey, the price is more than I wanted it to pay, and I found someone cheaper. Said, sounds good. I said, did you have a budget in mind? Because I'm not going to change my price. However, I can change what I take. Maybe there's some things that she can take to donate or put her curbside that will cut down the price, because she's taken on part of the project. She emails back the next day, hey, I decided to go with you guys. And I was like, it was so random. And you're never, it never hurts to ask. There's times where I've had a $5,000 job and I'll ask them, well, what's your budget? Oh, I thought it'd be no more than $1,000. All right, man, I'm not the right solution for you. But if I'm at 5,000 and someone's at 4,000, well, what can we do to bridge the gap here? And often there's a solution there. You got to be willing to do it. I'm not
if you processing it like you do.
Correct. I process it a certain way. I'm not a fan of discounting stuff, right? I can look at a job though and be like, okay, let me look at this job a little more and see if there's opportunity here. And often there is. And what it comes down to, if the customer is willing to do a little of the work in some capacity, I don't want them coming on my truck. If they're willing to get rid of some of the stuff on their own, well, then the price is going to go down naturally. Or I'll look at it and be like, okay, maybe we put it down for, like Ken had one recently. It was like 13 trailer job. And Ken's like, well, if we do 11 trailers, what would be left? And so we work with them. We're like, hey, if you can get rid of this, this, and this, we're down to 11 trailers. And they basically spent one weekend with their family, got rid of 2 trailers. And I'll tell you, it was like the easiest 2 trailers. It was all the big furniture. It was the stuff that I knew I could bang out. But their problem was, being elderly, it was all the stuff in the basement and all the smalls. That's what was going to slow them down. So what did it come down to? It was ended up being an 11 trailer job. And it's like, well, it saved them the $1,500. And that was the difference on that one particular job. You got to work with people.
And I think it's, you got so many good points in there too. But one of the notes I had in my notebook here, and just coming into this conversation, was the hybrid. Like you can create kind of self-service hybrid. So we'll do that a lot. I'll offer somebody a dumpster. We just did this the other day. They rented a 12-yard can from us. They took care of a lot of smalls. It cut down a lot of their expense. They were happy with it. And then we came in, we hauled all the big furniture. So it was a win-win for me. I still had the dumpster and I still got the junk removal job. Yeah, a little less margin, but versus no margin at all.
And you got the customer, and you got the customer happy.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is important here, and this might be a little unique to us, but I think there's ways for other people to use it. I had breakfast the other day with one of our local charities, one of the bigger ones. But we do a lot of high end work. We're here on the Jersey Shore. The Jersey Shore has a very high median income, depending on the communities you're in. We have some like flat out famous people that live here, spend money on big stuff. So
Snooki.
Yep. I've been able to coordinate with these people. They're willing to come out on almost short notice. So I'm going to save people money because I'm moving the really good stuff out to their garage, and I'm able to have this donation company come the next day because they know, like, dude, we gave them a Viking stove and a Sub-Zero fridge and some like Ethan Allen cabinets today. They know they want to be there for that stuff. So it's amazing they're able to make holes in their schedule and get that stuff done. And same thing, it's a win for everybody. The customer's happy, and I don't want to throw away good stuff. I'm with you, Andy. Like, I think it's really important. Anybody that goes into these landfills and transfer stations, dude, we got a garbage problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
So if we can recycle and reuse it, I'm
look
all
at the
about
value of the job. The value is not the price. And we did a job for a big church. Our price was too expensive. They were used to using dumpsters, and they would get volunteers. I got it. So what I did was I said, okay, I like that because I'm going to do the exact same thing, except I'm going to use my trailers and trucks that are wrapped. So what I did was I said, hey, look, if you get some volunteers to help us load all this crap, I'll do it at a flat rate, the same price that the dumpster company was charging you. And they're like, really? I said, absolutely, because most of it was foam, styrofoam. I have a foam fabricator down the street. We recycled 100% of it. And then the other stuff that wasn't foam was unstained lumber with nails in it, right? I can take that to the recycling plant. They chip it. So we showed up, and I had 3 trucks. Each truck had, I think, 1 guy. I think I only had 3 guys. But because they had 10 volunteers show up, that worked for me. Because I was like, look, now my guys don't have to do everything. Usually I have 2 guys per truck. Those other guys are on other jobs. And the most important part of that, it wasn't the price. It was being a part of that church right there on a really very busy main road in that Keller area. And they put us all over their marketing, their website. Hey, thank you to this company. They did a great job, blah, blah, blah. The value outweighed the price of the job 100-fold. Because now that church spread it throughout all their congregation for me, people I probably didn't know were in my area. Now they're seeing my company. So like you say, yeah, sometimes you got to do that hybrid deals. You got to just talk, communicate. That's it. Sometimes it's like, hey, look, all I have is a bunch of metal shit and I can't afford $800 for a full trailer. Well, if it's a bunch of metal shit, you know what you're doing with metal. There's a lot of flexibility there.
Yep.
Well, I think we're an industry full of scumbags, knuckleheads, whatever you want to call it. Your value as being honest and transparent is so huge.
Yeah.
So you lose a little bit on that job, but you get 10 referrals because people know, hey, this guy or this woman's legitimate.
And that's more valuable for me.
100%.
Oh, yeah. All right. Legitimate's the key. Recycle foam. Be flexible. Andy Barton's like showing his prices. I'm still on the fence on that one. I'm on the fence. I'm saying I'm on the fence. That's it. I'm not saying I'm not committed to it. Actually, I wrote an email to our marketing company and to the president of our company, and the marketing company got back to me, and he says, personally, not a fan. Price shoppers will contact you regardless to compare you with others. Showing your pricing gives other companies a comparison and may turn off people who don't understand the value you provide. I don't think they'll necessarily be more qualified. And Ken says, scares people, bargain shoppers who may not be sold, gives competitors easy access to prices. Our website is a tool to drive traffic to phones. We need an opportunity to speak with prospective customers. There you go. So that's also how quickly I am. And also, here's the other thing I did as a lawyer or as a leader. I'm not a fucking lawyer. I said was, what are your thoughts? I know, right? All I said, what are your thoughts? Well, here's the challenge with a lot of leaders. They'll say, hey, guys, what's your thoughts? Let me tell you mine. And then it's like, are you going to argue with the boss or side with him?
Bulldozer.
And so what I did was I sent an email. So here's a good practice. This is taking years of doing. I give people the minimum amount of information because I want the simplest answer. So there's my email I sent. I sent it 7 minutes ago. What are your thoughts on adding actual pricing to our website? Because we have quarter, or whatever, single item, a quarter. We have the same price size, right? And then I sent your website. So I'm like, what would it look like, right? Comparison. Mm-hmm. And then I get 2 emails back. And now, right, talking about data-driven decisions, I have Casey and Andy Barton here who say you should. I have 2 people that are in my company that say they're not like, and Ken even says, I'm generally opposed. Okay, so it's like, it's not a no. So one says personally not a fan, one says generally opposed. I'm like, okay. And now me as the leader, I have a 2-2. I'm the deciding vote. And now I have time to think about it and also consider, okay, what am I missing? And I agree with Ken. I like to get people on the phone so I can have a conversation. Will
but
putting
at the same
price
time,
on our
would you rather
website
have a
stop
good
that?
conversation? Would you rather have a conversation with someone who's already who already knows your prices, and you don't have to really work as much? The other thing is, like, I like to put prices out there because it shows transparency, but also look at who mostly shows their prices. Usually, it's the cheapest people. Only $100, guys. For me, I wasn't the cheapest. I wasn't the most expensive, but I was the most valuable and I was the best. And we would back our prices up on our website, on our Facebook, whatever, with reviews, with testimonies. I mean, so it's not only just show your prices. It's a one part to many, right? Like if you have your prices stated, well, then they're also going to look at, okay, how good is this company? Well, now let's go look at all these reviews, these testimonials that we can see.
Yeah.
That backs it up.
As of today, 715 reviews with a 5-star rating. Lewis, my boy Lewis, I will say on the Facebook group, Lewis put up something last week saying, hey, if you're missing Google reviews, he's got a step-by-step guide. What the fuck's the name of his company? It's like Purple Flower something.
Blue Crocus.
Blue something. Yeah.
Blue Crocus. There it is. Blue Crocus. See that you know what, as a not a sponsor, I don't have to get his name right. I'm still giving him a shout out. I was on his podcast last week, had a great conversation with him. He was a guest here on our podcast. I'm gonna put this out here as we start to wrap things up. For people out there in this world, the worst thing they can do is say no. I've had a lot of guests recently, or listeners recently ask, like, hey man, what are your thoughts on this? I'm like, hey, if you want to ask these questions, pony up. Get on the podcast and ask the questions, because if you have them, other people will. And you got to be willing to give, not only get. And thankfully, we've had some people recently that want to come on the podcast. Now, you got to have questions ready to go. So we are always looking for good guests. And the guests don't have to be in the junk roll industry. We've said it a few times now. Season 2, year 2, whatever, episode 65. This podcast is more than junk removal. It's an opportunity to learn about business and life and football occasionally. We haven't even mentioned football or politics, and we got over the 1 hour mark. I guess that's what happens when you record episodes in the morning. Casey's not jazzed up. And this is an opportunity, though, for you to go out there and ask us and ask other people questions and become a guest on this podcast, because we want to hear other perspectives, even perspectives that we might not agree with day one. Andy Barten, like, you reached out to me and you're just like, hey man, what do you think about this? And it was like, we had like a no shit conversation the first time, because it was like, well, I don't agree with you, and I think this. And it's like, oh, that's interesting, right? So it's like, I'm not saying you're right or wrong. It's a new perspective, and that's how we grow this business, and that's how we grow this industry. So that's my challenge to everybody. Find us. I can be found on LinkedIn and other places. Find us so that we can have these conversations. Let's go around the room and get some final thoughts before we get on with our 4th of July celebrations.
All right, I got a list here.
Oh my God.
I'm making this up, but I think if you went on my Google Analytics and looked at my pricing page, now my employees have cell phones provided by the company, but I bet all the IPs to the bartenbros.com/pricing is 99% my employees using it as a tool to sell the job. I don't think very many customers are going on there. But my other question is, if you're not advertising your prices, Andy, how are you booking online?
I don't book online. You got to
either.
call or email. I don't ever book online.
We're gonna have to have a whole episode about this. I love the online.
You know what?
booking.
I agree. We should, because I've always been against booking online.
I hate booking online.
I'm voting for it 110%. I love the online booking. I do probably 3 to 5 a week, and they go on, they pick a half truck, they pick a full truck, and they like it. And they're like, we show up and they're like, hey, will you tell me when I get the half a truck? Yes, we will. And a lot of times they go over.
Can they pick the time? Oh my God,
Yep.
we might need a second hour. I'm
They
gonna
can
have to
pick the
tailor.
time.
I hate that. How are you supposed to route? How am I supposed to be efficient?
You got a
That
ghost
episode's
route,
over.
baby, and you use it. You use it.
Episode's over.
Oh my gosh! Let's go around the room at the highlights, and Barton's like, new topic.
New topic. we're capturing. Hey guys, I got a list of topics that we want to talk about. We're an hour into it. Let's talk about what I want to talk about now.
So let's finally start this podcast.
Well, I think you started it, man. No advertising and pricing. You got me wondering, like, if he's not advertising his pricing, how's he booking online? And I find out you're not booking online.
Next question. Three to five. Okay, how many trucks? You're running like 7 trucks, right? How many trucks you running?
At least I could run as many as I can find employees for.
Don't you need
that's a separate conversation.
3 to 5.
Aren't you looking for a bigger
3 to 5
property?
jobs. 3 to 5 jobs is a big fucking nothing burger.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not a huge number, but it's a number I don't touch, and they book at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're happy with it. So we opened a second location. I think I actually own 16 trucks.
Physical trucks, yeah.
Yeah. But I do like the online booking.
Well, you know what? We'll have you back on for that because that's an interesting topic that I've always, like Andy, I never did it because I like to control my own schedule. But if there's a different route,
maybe I open myself up to it. I run it for 90 days. So I just spent the last 90 days running the Google LSA, and it was crap. Maybe
I want to get into that too.
It was crap.
I'm a big fan.
You like it?
Yeah, I love it.
Jesus.
I think you have to manage it, but.
All right, well, then I need to get on a phone call with my marketing company and figure out how to fucking manage it because it was mismanaged.
Dude, this guy
I hope
outside,
he's not watching your podcast.
This guy is outside. He's been mowing this whole time with an electric mower, and he's changed the battery 3 times.
God bless America, baby.
God bless. And he's gonna go plug that electric mower in to the power that's probably being produced by coal.
Hey Stevie, how's that railroad working out for you?
Those batteries are heavier than shit and basically unrecyclable. At Waste 360, there was all these companies that are like, hey, we're going to recycle lithium batteries. We need $25 million to start up to figure out how to do it. I was on a pitch. I was a judge. And here's the deal. I'm not. It's a very worthy endeavor. And I'm all about green. I just think it's insane that people are like, I drive a Tesla, so I'm good for the planet. And it's like, well, not if you're using fossil fuels to power the Tesla from another location. Plus the fact that they use child and slave labor to get cobalt.
Yeah, I was going to say let's talk about cobalt mines, and you tell me how good it is for anybody.
Jesus, we might have to start a whole other podcast that's like Andy and Andy bitching about what's happened in today's society.
I heard Biden loves to visit those mines.
All right, well, we're going to have him on for the next quarterly. All right, what other takeaways? Not new topics. What takeaways did you have from today? Not new topics. This is the worst follow-up ever. So it's like, oh, yeah, I learned this thing, and everyone should know it. And Barton's like, let's start some more shit. Let me tell you something.
I think it's inflation, man. I think Drunkmove's got a lot of opportunity. That's what I think the takeaway is here.
Yep.
And I think you just got to make sure you're managing your shit through this uncertain time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys are losing money or they're seeing declines, and I think if you continue to do things right, you can maybe avoid a lot of that.
Yeah. I literally I got an email from Right On Junk Removal. This is one of those cats that's newer in the business. I told him to reach out. There's a Right On Junk Removal. So might be a guest here coming up soon. Random email. See, you guys get the real-time play-by-play of my emails because I have them open because I'm actively working. Casey, Suns out, guns out. Casey, top takeaway from today.
Top takeaway, honestly, stick to the basics, man. Record your data. If you're not collecting data on your own company, how much do you really give a damn about your own company? Collecting data is not just to put it in a folder and say, oh yeah, we have statistics. No, it's how do I improve what's already happening? How do I get better at what I do? How can I be on top of the market? You can set better goals, I think, if they're data-driven. Data-driven goal setting is important.
When they're data-driven.
When they're data-driven. But
did you read my book yet?
No, I haven't. Jesus. I haven't even got it yet.
Did you order it?
Yeah.
Words Fucking Matter, available online at Amazon.com. That's Words Fucking Matter. Retrain your brain to use language that serves you, where you'll eliminate words like if and but and sorry. You're welcome,
and
America.
In the middle of my fucking takeaway.
There you go. See, I even brought in the radio voice. I brought in the PA announcer voice.
Well, I think, but yeah. So
you just said you can make a decision if you use your numbers. No, you make a decision when you use your numbers.
All right. I'm sorry, Andy. Oh, wait. Can I say sorry?
Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Nobody. Expos, there are for those of you not watching online, there are Expo markers flying everywhere because my chicken scratch can't use a
So
pen.
Andy wrote a book pretty much eliminating half of the English language and saying you can't
Garbage
use it.
words. It's
And
the
he still says
anti-glossaries.
it. He still says it in the
Shit
book.
words
He
that
just
do
says you
not
can't
serve.
say it. Don't say
shit
this
words that
word
do not
as he
serve.
says it. Anyways,
Bart,
the other takeaway
Andy Barton,
is
did you buy my book? Hold on.
stick
Did
to
you
the
buy my
basics
book?
when it comes to marketing.
All right.
Did I buy your book?
Oh my God, he's about to show me his. Look at that. He's got 4 books on his bookshelf. There it is. There it is. That's it. See, Casey, that's a good friend. Casey, where's your copy?
Has he read it?
In the mail.
No, it's 3 in a queue still.
You need money? Oh, all right. All right, I got a guy coming to my office looking for money, so I'm going to do my top takeaway here. Do things you don't like doing, right? Do things that you maybe have discredited in the past. So I am open to doing something new this quarter so that we have new results when we do our next quarterly check-in. So Ken's right here, so I'm going to look at his face when I say this. I am considering putting pricing on the website. I am also considering
Online booking.
Ken already said it was a bad idea. I got your email. Also, I am also considering letting people book online.
Also bad.
Also bad
Do
idea.
it.
That was a bad idea. All right. I know customer service is what sets us apart. All right. So, all right. I when we talk again, there will be something new because last month I tried out mailers, and they're working right now. So I've seen results. So there you go. Do something new. Do the basics. And we need another episode of Andy Barton, which we will do first week of October. We're going to do quarterly check-ins with the Barton Bros to see what's going on in the world. I'm Andy Weins. He's Casey Bubba Lawrence. And for the Barton Brothers, it's been another amazing episode of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. We'll see you next week.